From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on the power of little. I really love this concept, and I think it's appropriate right about now because as you're listening to this podcast, it's about the middle of January, and so many people who set out the beginning of the new year with great goals to improve something in their life or achieve something in their life. Right about now, many of them are ready to throw in the towel. They're ready to give up. They're ready to just say, forget about it. It's harder than I thought, or I don't want it as bad as I thought I did, or nah, not this year, or maybe it's just too difficult, whatever the reason. So many people are right about now beginning to think about throwing their goal away or whatever it is. And so I think it's appropriate to talk about this because most of the time, what happens is we get fired up and inspired with great big goals around New Year's, right? It's a new start, a new beginning. Nothing wrong with that. But those big goals, big dreams are overwhelming because if it's a big goal, it's going to take big changes, right? We think. But honestly and truthfully, the power is in the little changes compounded over time. Transformation doesn't happen in a day, it happens every day. And over time, something done one step forward every single day is going to take you miles and miles and miles down the road. Versus if you try to go miles and miles and miles down the road in one day, it's not going to happen. You're going to exhaust yourself, hurt yourself, discourage yourself, and you're going to quit. So I want to throw out the mindset of I've got to do it all today. And I want you to adopt the mindset of I just need to do something today. I just need to move forward in a small way today. Because here's the thing, if you make a commitment to yourself that is so tiny, it's laughably tiny, there's no way in the world you can come up with an excuse as to why you can't do it. So, for example, if you want to exercise more, right? We know it sounds good to say, today I'm going to, or this week I'm going to exercise 5 times this week. And then what's going to happen? You're going to set your alarm for 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning. The alarm's going to go off, and you're like, no way, I'm getting up to exercise. I'll do it later, or I don't want to do it, or it doesn't matter. And you're just going to go back to sleep, right? But if you just say, hey, I want to exercise more this week and I want to do it tomorrow morning, I want to get up earlier and exercise, set your alarm clock for 5 minutes earlier than you normally get up. 5 minutes, 3 minutes. If 3 minutes is doable for you, and that's the goal, that 100% committed to it, and you're like, that goal is so tiny that of course there's no way I can come up with an excuse as to why I can't do it, right? If that's 3 minutes, if it's 5 minutes, if it's 6 minutes, whatever it is, I want you to set that goal that tiny. Because again, if that goal for yourself for tomorrow is so laughably tiny, there's no way you could come up with an excuse as to why you can't do it, then you'll do it. And 5 minutes of exercise tomorrow is better than none if you hit the snooze button at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? You'll at least have 5 minutes in. But the bigger win here, the bigger victory is you're building a track record for success. You're creating a pattern, a habit of making a commitment to yourself and following through. And do that for a few weeks. And then maybe you want to inch up to 6 minutes early, getting up 6 minutes earlier. Maybe it's getting up 7 minutes earlier. Just there again, how small, how little, how tiny can you make those changes, those adjustments? Because we're just talking about a small course correction is so much easier to do than a major lifestyle change, right? You can do a major lifestyle change, but the odds of you being successful at it are so much greater if you just shoot for the tiny little adjustments, the little things. And the little things add up to big things over time, but we just have to be intentional about what are those little things. What are those little goals that I can do every single day that it's going to move me forward, right? Little things. Harness the power of little, because I'm telling you, this is where you start to build your integrity with yourself, being able to make a commitment to yourself, even when it's not always a fun commitment. Exercising in the morning generally isn't, right? Our bodies don't like to exercise, but maybe it's not an exercise goal for you or a health goal. Um, or a weight loss goal. But if it, if it is, that's an example I use because that is a lot of goals for a lot of people, particularly this time of year. Maybe it's a weight loss goal and you're like, oh, what can I cut out? And you're like, oh, I'm just going to eat salads for a month. And then you get 3 days into it and you're like, no way. Why did I ever create that goal for myself? Don't think about it like that. Just look for the small swaps. Could you maybe take the croutons off your salad and throw in a few sunflower seeds instead? Maybe instead of salad dressing, you do some lime juice and some salsa, right? Make it a taco flavored salad. And right, those incredible tiny swaps, but if you give up 200 calories of salad dressing and swap that for, 30 calories of salsa and lime juice, you just saved yourself 100 calories, right? It's easy to see how that would add up to weight loss over time. So get excited about the little things. But there again, maybe it's not a weight loss goal or an exercise goal. Probably relevant for a lot of people. But if maybe your goal is increasing your influence, I'm working on a new book and writing a chapter where I'm talking about this is something we do every day, right? Growing our influence with other people is something we work at every single day. And it's not like you're just going to wake up tomorrow and have more influence. It's the little changes over time, the little development of your skills over time. Now, maybe your goal is to be a better communicator and you're going to work on your communication skills so that you can be maybe more prepared or more articulate in meetings at work, or maybe it's communicating with your kids or your spouse, whatever. Let's just say you want to increase your communication skills. Well, what that's going to look like is the power of little is learning one new thing or working for just a couple of minutes on your communication skills every single day. Maybe it's picking one incident this week where you want to practice on listening instead of talking. And listening is one of those skills, it's very, very underappreciated, but I could do a whole podcast episode. I should do a whole podcast episode on the power of listening in terms of increasing your influence. But it's hard to listen, right? That's why more people don't do it. And we've all had that experience of trying to listen to someone, but we find ourselves formulating a thought even before the words are out of their mouth. And that just shows that we're not truly listening at a deep level. We're thinking more about what we're going to say instead of what they've been saying. And of course we all do this from time to time, but maybe it's picking one incident this week that you want to focus on really really just listening first. And then once that person is completely understood, they feel like you have listened to them, then you might share something or share a thought or rephrase the content. But here's, there again, that's just an example of pick one incident with one person and give it that opportunity to improve. Maybe it's reading a personal growth book. You don't have to commit to reading the whole book this weekend. Maybe your power of little is one page a day, one paragraph a day, one chapter a week. Set that goal for yourself so tiny that you know you can do it. There's no excuse, there's no way, there's no reason you cannot commit to that. And that helps you set up for success. But there again, the power is in these little changes leveraged over time because they do add up. I use the analogy of if you just learn one principle, one thing, or one quote every day for the next year, excuse me, you would think differently this time next year, wouldn't you? I mean, yeah, you would absolutely think differently if you learned 365 new things to prepare you for next year, for January of 2024. Right? We're just talking about one little thing. Could you read one little quote every single day and learn that and help change the way you think. Absolutely. You would think at an entirely different level if you had 365 more pieces of valuable knowledge in your brain. And I'm talking about valuable knowledge. I'm not necessarily talking about learning a new song. That might be easier for your brain, but that might not necessarily help you increase your influence and move forward in life. So, learning some new things relative to helping you grow your influence or improve your interpersonal skills, your relationships, personally or professionally, because that's what helps us move forward, developing either our character or our competency. But most of the time, if we focus our efforts on developing our character, that will give us the greater return on investment in terms of of increasing influence. So I guarantee you've probably already got your goals in mind for January. And there again, you're a couple of weeks into January as you listen to this podcast. And maybe you're kind of at the point where you're feeling frustrated, you're not seeing results, or you're intimidated, or it just seems too big. But think about what can you do that's so small, so little, but it compounds over time. Do it every single day. Now, here's the thing. I always say give yourself some grace when life happens, because life will happen occasionally. But don't create a track record of missing. So if you have a goal to do something every single day to move forward in life, you give yourself some grace, but don't miss twice. Life might happen one morning, but the second morning you got to get up out of bed and get to exercising or pick up your book in the evening. Yeah, maybe you had a ball game for your kid to go to on Monday night, so you didn't get your chapter read or your paragraph read, but Tuesday night, get right back on track, right? You don't want to create a pattern of breaking your commitment to yourself. You want to create a pattern of success. That's why you choose something that's so, so, so tiny. You know you can do it in 5 minutes or 3 seconds or 30 seconds and knock that out of the park. So, thoughts on that? And there again, so much of the time it almost works against us because we get excited by big things, big steps forward, big changes, but it's the little things over time. So I ran a half marathon this past weekend. And if you've been listening to my podcast, I did several marathons last year and I trained really hard for all of those marathons. I spent quite a lot of time and effort and energy improving my running. But you don't see a great gain in training every day or even every month or even every 6 months necessarily, right? It's a lot of work to get a little bit of a gain over time once you get to a certain level. But I was dedicated to that last year. And so I worked really hard. I did, my speed trainings and track workouts and, focused on nutrition and all of those things. And, you know, that's rewarding, putting the work in and seeing that translate. But anyway, so I ran this half marathon this past weekend after having spent a good chunk or most of last year training. And this particular half marathon, it's 13 miles. It's one that I've run several times. This might have been my fourth or fifth time running it because it's fairly close. It's local. It's easy. It's a small half marathon. It's fun. It's a nice course. It's beautiful. It's scenic. So I've done this one several times. But what's cool is running it this year and coming in 2.5 minutes faster than I ran it last year with pretty much the same course, pretty much the same weather, but 2.5 minutes faster. Now, 2.5 minutes isn't going to sound like much to most of you. You're thinking, what is 2.5 minutes over an hour and 45 minutes of running? But in terms of running, and particularly at that distance, that's a pretty good chunk, right? But my point here is to see that result of 2.5 minutes of improvement over the course of the race. I had to work on all of the little changes all last year. I mean, I had been really training for about 11 of the 12 months last year. And, just working on the little things. What are the little things that I can do to help me run just a few seconds faster on this particular workout, or just work a little bit harder? And, all of the little things add up. So if you think about that in terms of your success, break that down to what are the little things that if I just improve 1% in this area and this area and this area, but I do that every day over time, what could that add up to be? Right? And there again, that's not glamorous, so it kind of works against our human nature because that's not glamorous, right? We're just talking about work and discipline and commitment to making things happen. We're not talking about setting a glamorous vision board with dreams of what your life is going to look like. There's nothing wrong with those things. But where the success happens, where the achievement happens, is in the daily discipline, the dedication, the commitment to the daily work, and the tiny little things that are going to move you forward, harnessing the power of little. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.